Today we're making a halal version of a Southeast Asian classic, laksa. We'll start by prepping 4 stalks of lemongrass by removing the outer layer, cutting off the top portion of the stalk, then removing the root end. Next, we'll cut that into thin pieces. I've really enjoyed finding new uses for lemongrass. It smells great during preparation and has really become one of my favorite ingredients. We'll continue prepping some aromatics by slicing a 4-inch piece of ginger, a thick 3-inch piece of galangal, and finally chopping some shallots. Set half of those aside for later. Galangal is another interesting new ingredient for me. I wasn't sure what to expect, but it's got a really nice citrus smell to it. Once those are all prepared, we'll place all the chopped up parts in a food processor along with 4 dried chilies, 3 large cloves of garlic, and about half a cup of halal chicken broth. Then process that into a thick paste. Once that's processed, we'll add 1 tablespoon of palm sugar, 2 teaspoons of coriander, 2 teaspoons of turmeric, 1 teaspoon of shrimp paste, and half a cup of roasted peanuts. We'll process that one more time to make it nice and thick. Finally, we'll add half a cup of chicken broth and 1 cup of peanut oil. Process that one last time, and once it's a nice smooth paste, we'll move on to the next step. We'll start by preparing 2 pounds of halal chicken breast from the link in the description below. We'll cut that in half to make a thinner fillet. This helps our chicken cook more evenly. I found that the top half of my chicken was a little thicker, so I cut it in half one more time. Then I warmed up a tablespoon or 2 of peanut oil and pan-fried the chicken until golden brown. As I cooked it, I seasoned it with salt and pepper. Don't overdo the seasoning here. The chicken isn't the star of the show, our soup is. And while that gets all cooked up, why don't you go ahead and hit like and subscribe so you never miss out on one of our great new halal recipes. We put out a brand new one every Friday. Once that's looking nice and golden on both sides, we'll remove it from the heat and set it aside. Then in the same pan, we'll add another tablespoon of oil, and then we'll toss in the remainder of our shallots and fry those until they're crispy and browned. Then we'll remove those from the heat and set them aside for now. Now we'll add in 2 tablespoons of peanut oil into a large pot or Dutch oven over medium heat and add in our laksa paste. We want to simmer that, stirring occasionally. Once our paste has started to bubble, we'll cook that for a few minutes or until it starts to thicken a little bit. Next we'll add 4 cups of chicken broth, 2 cups of coconut cream, and salt and pepper to taste. Give that a good mix in and we'll increase our heat and bring that to a simmer and let all those flavors get to work. Once that's simmered for a bit, you'll start to notice some thick residue forming on the top of the soup. That's called scum, and it's about as tasty as it sounds. So we'll remove that, ideally with a slotted spoon or a fine mesh strainer. I didn't have either of those at the time, so I used a big metal spoon. It works just as well, it's just a little slower is all. Once that's gone, we'll mix in about 2 tablespoons of fish sauce. If you'd like your laksa to be a bit more fishy, you could add another tablespoon or 2 of the fish sauce. Finally, we'll cook up some rice noodles. I went for noodles that were slightly thicker, but you could really use any kind of rice noodle that you prefer here. Once those are cooked, we'll place them directly in the bowl we plan to eat from. After this, it's very similar to ramen in terms of how it's served. Add your laksa soup to the noodles, top with some sliced chicken breast from earlier. Next, we'll top with a few cooked shrimps. Then we'll reintroduce those crispy fried shallots. These are some of my favorites, so I piled them really high. Next we'll add some bean sprouts and a couple of mint leaves just to make things look nice and pretty. Then to finish it off and give it a little extra zhuzh, I hit it with some fresh lime juice, then I called it good. Thanks for checking out our vid, and if you made it this far, why don't you hit like and subscribe so you never miss out on one of our tasty new recipes.